Yo, what's going on, guys? This is Houston Sports Talk back into the video today. And today, the Denver Nuggets have fired their general manager, Calvin Booth, who's been their GM since 2017, alongside firing their head coach, Michael Malone, who's been their head coach since the 2015-2016 season. And most of his seasons with the Denver Nuggets, he's led them to the playoffs. This was his 10th season as the Nuggets head coach, and his first 3 seasons as the Nuggets head coach, they did not make the playoffs. His third year, they were very close to making the playoffs. You guys remember there was they went 46-36 that year, and they had the final game of the season against Minnesota and Jimmy Butler, and whoever won got the 8th seed to play the Rockets in 2017-18 season, and Denver lost. But then after that season, Denver was in the playoffs every other season that Michael Malone was their head coach. Look, after the 2017-18 season, the 2018-19 season, 19-20 season, 2021 season, and every year after that, Michael Malone led this Nuggets team to the playoffs. And even in the 2022-23 season, they won the championship. You want to go to the last year? I know, they didn't win a championship again. They didn't go back to back, but they went to the semifinals. They were a game away. Honestly, I'm going to say this. They were, in my opinion, a game away from the NBA Finals because, yes, they were a game away. In reality, they were a game away from the Western Conference Finals. I honestly don't think Denver would have lost to Dallas. I don't know. It's complicated. Maybe Dallas might have. It would have been. That would have been a tough. This is what I do believe. I don't know if saying Denver would have beat Dallas is the right thing to say, but Denver would have been much harder for Dallas to deal with than Minnesota was, in my opinion. But I know there's a lot of people that are out there that probably think that if Denver would have won that Game 7 against Minnesota, which was a terrible, terrible loss for this Denver team, that possibly they would have been in the NBA Finals again. And also, if you look back at last season, Boston had a lot of trouble going up against Denver. So who knows what could have happened with Denver last year if they would have just won the Game 7, but they didn't. So that doesn't really matter. But, I already talked about Michael Malone. I did a video on that. But I want to talk about Calvin Booth. This is not that surprising. You look at Michael Malone's firing, and it's surprising. But Calvin Booth, on the other end, I look at this firing, and it's not very surprising. It was the last year of his contract. Negotiations between Booth and the Nuggets weren't going, well. And you've seen on television, watching all this break down. You watching ESPN, you watching what Brian Windhorst and Shams NBA insiders are saying, that there was speculation that Calvin Booth would not be back next season as the GM. But I don't think anyone saw the Michael Malone thing coming. Now, I think it's the same thing with Taylor Jenkins. If there were to be a failure in the playoffs for this Nuggets team, and they were to not do well this postseason, then if they fired Michael Malone, I don't think that would have been very surprising. Letting go of Malone after a playoff series loss, potentially. But no, you don't even let him get to the playoffs. Instead, you fire him with 3 games left in the year, and you give. And this is nothing against the new interim David Adelman, because just a couple weeks ago I was talking about David Adelman. I was Memphis fired their head coach. I did a video about possible head coaches that could be good fits for the Grizzlies. David was one of those guys. So I think he's a very solid coach. He's been an assistant for Denver for as long as Michael Malone was an assistant. I believe David Adelman became an assistant for Denver in the 2016-17 season. There's only one season that Michael Malone coached in Denver that he wasn't next to David Adelman. And so, he's a solid coach, I think, to bring in. The Lakers were interested in him last year. interviewed him. There were other teams that have interviewed him for the head coaching job in years prior. So it's not like he's a bad coach. I think he's a good coach, but he's never coached at the head coaching level. He's got 3 games to get comfortable as a head coach. And not only does he have 3 games to get comfortable as a head coach, but to get comfortable with these players, I know he's probably got good relationships with these players. But that's he's got good relationships with the players as, he's being the assistant coach. Now he's the head coach. That's completely different. And you got 4 of your 5 starters that have only been coached by one head coach in their entire careers. That's Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, Michael Porter Jr., and Christian Brown. A little bit different with guys like Aaron Gordon, Russell Westbrook, who have played for other teams. But the four first names that I mentioned all played for one head coach, and that's Mike Malone. They got to get used to a new head coach. That's something they haven't had in their NBA careers. The Calvin Booth firing, I get it. It's just Malone firing as of right now. At this time, I don't understand it. If it was the playoffs, I'd understand. After the playoffs, I'd understand it. But at this time, I think it's a dumb move. The Calvin Booth thing, I don't think that really matters. Look, what is it? There's not much a GM. I'm just saying this, and I don't know how people feel about this. There's not much a GM can do at the end of the year. It's not like this is the trade deadline is passed. It's not like free agency's coming up. Well, free agency will be in July, but I'm sure Denver will hire their next GM by the time free agency starts. I am, close to 99% sure they will find a new permanent, a more permanent GM before NBA free agency starts on July 1st. So there's not much a GM can do for you now, but with a head coach, you need a good head coach in the playoffs. Instead of an interim head coach that's never coached a game as a head coach. Meanwhile, you got Michael Malone, who could be your head coach and has won you a championship, and he's not going to be with this Denver team. So let me know your thoughts on the firing for Denver in the comment section, and peace out.